Hey everyone, so it's been about a day since GGG released the patch, maybe a day and a half. I've had a chance to play around with the barrage setup, play around with rain of arrows, see which one works better for single target, and also in general move gems around now that our frenzy charge is so consistent. We get a lot more room to work with. Honestly, the build just feels a lot smoother overall. I do sort of feel like we're in for a nerf, but whether or not, there's a lot more busted builds right now, honestly. I do feel like we'll be third or fourth in line. So keep that in mind when looking at the build for now. So yeah, let's get into some of the gems I played around with. So I guess first to talk about the elephant in the room, Rain of Arrows versus Barrage. So basically the Rain of Arrows setup I ended up being the one I landed on. The reason being is I think for name locking or accuracy or one of those mechanics, doesn't feel very good. I think it has to do with either the way that the name locking is happening on hovering over the cursor, or the way that accuracy is playing into the build with Barrage, and the way that it tracks the hits. It might be rolling accuracy once per barrage or something like that, and if that's the case, sometimes you can just whiff the entire volley of like 12 hits. And that feels really bad. And on top of that, Rain of Arrows just feels better for clear as well. Again, just sort of lean into what the build is good at. We are sort of a clear build, so I do like the idea of being able to hit a rare that's frozen, behind a mob pack. If this were Barrage, it would get stuck in the mobs in front of us. So in general, I do recommend Rain of Arrows. It just feels nicer. And also, the way that it plays into boss fights is much, much smoother. Barrage itself is very clunky to have to cast. It has a cast itself, and then you have to actually release it, and the release itself takes a long time too. And because it takes so long to do both of those, in general, it just feels too long. Whereas the Rain of Arrows itself scales off of your own attack speed, and it gets decently high on this build. So what the single target ends up looking like is we have basically a full freeze setup on our freezing salvo now. And so when we freeze, we snipers mark, Rain of Arrows, spam, 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 spam. Snipers mark, spam, get our charges back, Rain of Arrows, and keep going. And if you're on bosses that stand still a lot or get frozen multiple times in a row, you'll find that Rain of Arrows just feels better. But Barrage has the upside of hitting mobile targets. But I think for clear, Rain of Arrows is probably the winner. So I would go ahead and use Rain of Arrows, but I do recommend testing both for yourself. Barrage is very fun, just as an idea, and getting to gun down and stuff. I just wanted to make a few notes about the build itself, as far as where I'm going with items. So in general, the idea of going rarity has been starting to be actualized now. So the idea was that honestly we have a lot of open affixes, we can stack a bunch of rarity. So I went ahead and I bought this base and then slammed rarity and resistance on here, and that let me put this on, and then I get another 40% up here, a helmet I crafted as well, and then I get another 26% from this ring that I bought. And so between these things, we are getting on kill, I think, 135%. You could easily get another roll either on the boots or here. You could probably get this to 160, 180. And honestly, I've been mapping a little bit with it. It feels pretty good. I highly recommend going Magic Find if you can. This is sort of the upside that we have on other builds right now, because you run a lot of rares basically. So what that looks like for Stormcaller is now basically, because our Frenzy Charge generation is so consistent, we don't need to actually freeze on Stormcaller anymore. So I just went ahead and did full DPS setup with reduced duration, and some support for our other skills. So again, the exposures got buffed. There's a lot more buffs than just the Frenzy Charge buffs to this build. So this gives us extra gems to work with. The exposure is pretty big, so running exposure is really good for that single target. And then Spiral Volley, I've leaned in mostly, I've kept it leaned into just having as wide of an AoE as possible. Ricochet got buffed as well, so this gives us basically more range in open maps. And then in closed area maps, this helps it bounce around corners and clear rooms that we're not even close to. This feels really good. I would keep this on as a mainstay. And in general, I'm just running sort of whatever damage, close combat, and also cold exposure, because why not? Feels alright, because you only need to crit once every 8 seconds, which I think on this build you are definitely doing. Moving on to Sniper's Mark. Basically, the cooldown got reduced so much that we don't need Second Wind anymore. We literally just cast it as is, and if you do a 30% cooldown recovery rate, you probably aren't ever going to need to spam it faster than that. So I would keep it as is, and then if you want, you can add these two to increase the cast speed and basically make it negligible. So yep, that's it for the actual skills. And then I think for our auras, I tried Cast on Shock, Cast on Freeze. It felt alright. It doesn't really feel to do a whole lot for the build, just because we don't really need to cast our Sniper's Mark. In general, our frenzy charges are up fast enough that we don't need Sniper's Mark anymore. And the clear is so consistent that doing any marks like Nova or Voltaic Mark doesn't actually change anything. So we're going to go ahead and just keep them as is. This is a note for the people that are trying to build and realizing they don't have enough spirit. You really don't need Herbalism or Precision. I'm not 100% sure accuracy needs a lot more testing, but Herbalism and Precision could be socketed out probably if you're struggling to hit if you need 24 more spirit back. Keep Perfusion on Combat Frenzy rather than Sniper's Mark. This is our main consistency, so keep that on there. And in terms of heralds, everything's all the same. The Electrocute Neural Overload got buffed because Electrocute no longer has the 40% damage penalty, and so I've just gone ahead and also chucked the penetration and on both of the auras, and then for Herald Device, I pretty much just chucked whatever cold-related damage thing I could, and then also just Coursing Current, because why not? In general, it doesn't really matter too much, just have Magnifying Effect down there. One more note for clear, for single target, Conk Effect is by far our most powerful skill gem. If you feel that you want to primarily deal damage with your Stormcaller Arrow rather than Rain of Arrows, I would swap this with this. However, there's not a whole lot of more damage to put on here other than Conk Effect for Rain of Arrows, so I would keep it as is, but if you feel like your Stormcaller, you don't want to actually have to use Rain of Arrows, just swap this into up here and you'll have a lot more damage here. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Hope you guys are enjoying the builds. Again, single target, go Rain of Arrows, my suggestion. In the future, I would like to attempt Pinnacle bosses more. I got to figure out the mana problem, but I don't want to run Thieves Torment, which I think is sort of a lame way to do it. So I'll let you guys know if I land on a good solution for that, but until then, I hope you guys are enjoying the build. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's something else I can improve on this build. This is sort of the best I've landed on.